We are back, bashing the brain, Willie, live from somewhere in Idaho,
Spokane, Spokane,
Spokane,
Washington.
Washington.
Washington for a couple more days, and then move to
You
Idaho,
just can't get away from the Big Ten.
the
The
Gem
Big
State.
Ten goes to Willie.
I know. I move out here. They add some teams.
Yeah, I
They
love it.
add
So we're going to talk about conference realignment today because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of people like DMing me saying, "Why is this bad for wrestling? What does this mean for wrestling?" So we're going to dive in. I know Willie says he has no sponsors, but thankfully we do have a sponsor. Attack video game stats meet real life training. Find out what your attack rating is. They have video game stats where it's strength, endurance, speed, mentality, agility, flexibility. One of the coolest apps going, built by wrestlers for wrestlers, but they're having so much success that you're seeing a ton of football players and other high school athletes using it to level up. So download the Attack app, ATAC. It's on Google Play Store. It's in the Apple Store. Follow them on social, atac.app. Thank you to Attack. We're not Willie. We need sponsors. All right, Willie.
Well, we'll hit that. We'll hit that when we get to the topic. But I'll explain why I said I don't have any sponsors. Um,
Paid content is a great thing that lets you do that. Do you
yeah.
want
I
to
mean,
dive
hey,
right into that right now? Because I don't know where that tweet came from. So if you want to make that the first topic, let's go.
all right. So my first topic. I mean, the genesis of that tweet was that I get so angry that we got conference realignment. Oregon's coming in the Big Ten. Obviously, all the Big Ten schools have wrestling, and I don't believe that the four new schools are going to be compelled to have programs, and it really makes me angry. And um, Oregon, in and of itself, makes me angry because of all the things that go on with it. They have Nike money. They make money off Nike. I mean, Nike makes money off wrestling. I mean, let's be clear, Oregon and Nike are synonymous. That they have the funds to have a wrestling team and they choose not to for absolutely no reason. And then you have Nike providing wrestling gear. Right? They are making money off of wrestling. If they weren't making money, they wouldn't be in business. So they're making money off wrestling, but they're choosing not to support wrestling. And the reason I said I don't have sponsors is because I like the guys at APS. I really do. Grant Turner, especially. And I mean, frankly, I love the guy. But if Oregon's going to come back and choose not to have wrestling, then why is Nike making a cent off wrestling?
Oregon had a wrestling program and cut them like a decade ago, I want to say. Was it longer than that?
Around, yeah, I think around a decade ago. And Shane Webster had won a national title the year before. I mean, they had a national champion. And then they go and they cut the program. Right? It's devastating when especially the entire region needs wrestling programs as much as they can, right? Oregon State, Boise State. We're really the only three in the Pacific Northwest. And then you cut Oregon, and then Boise gets cut. And now you have just Oregon State.
Well, and we'll dive into that because so what's happening is you have all these schools realigning with different conferences. You had a while ago it was announced that USC and UCLA are moving to the Big Ten. And at first everybody's getting all excited, like, oh, can't wait for the wrestling programs. Well, that's not a guarantee. But now you have Washington State and Oregon saying they're also going to the Big Ten. You have Arizona State, Arizona, and Utah announcing that they're going to the Big 12. So you have a whole slew of problems in different conferences, and the Pac-12 is down to like 4 or 5 schools. And I don't even know if they'd have a conference championship right now as it stands. And now there's rumors that the ACC is allegedly exploring Cal and Stanford moving. So there's a lot of different moves happening in the Big Ten schools, for example. It's not a guarantee that people think it's going to be a prerequisite. They have to get wrestling. I'm under the impression that that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, I don't. That's a frustrating part too. And you see, sort of, you see two contingents of people on Twitter that the reaction to this. You see the optimists saying this is going to be great. We're gonna pick up at least a couple more programs, right? They're gonna add programs, and you see the realists, the Adam Terrapellis, the Scott Greens, saying, guys, this isn't going to be good. They're not going to add programs, and when the new schools come into the Big Ten, don't add programs, it could make the incumbent administration say maybe we should cut programs, right? Be it wrestling, be it field hockey, whatever it may be. And so ultimately, I don't believe it's a good thing.
Yeah. And we were talking on the phone last night about Nebraska as an example of, a school that could, given the history of their AD, cut wrestling.
Yeah. I don't think they will, but it's scary with Trev Alberts there in his past, but no, I don't think Nebraska will. Nebraska is a really proud sports community. They like having their
yeah, and I don't think they'll cut it, but the one of the scary things of all this is the question marks and the uncertainty, because you look at somebody and think, what could they do?
Well, just the visibility of it too, just the optics of it is like, okay, Big Ten, every program has a wrestling team, right? Now it's not. Now it's like, yeah, some of them do, some of them don't. That's not good optics.
And for those who don't know, the Nebraska AD, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, the Nebraska AD cut wrestling from Nebraska Omaha when he was the AD over there.
Yeah, and Nebraska Omaha at the time was rattling off D2 titles,
Yeah. So he's a guy who's cut wrestling before. And Nebraska, has not only a strong team, strong recruits, strong coaching. So I'm not sitting here saying, hey, this guy's going to cut Nebraska. I'm just saying it leads to those types of questions. And I think you're already going to have, there's going to be a lot of cool things to it, but make no mistake about it. This is all football. This is all about football and money, and universities chasing a college football championship. And what you're seeing a lot of the non-traditional media talking about, Missouri coach talking about, I think Lane Kiffin was talking about it, what these athletes are going to have to endure, specifically non-football players, where you have Washington State field hockey coming to play Rutgers, or Rutgers traveling to Oregon for a duel. The amount, not a duel, a game, whatever, but the amount of travel and the wear and tear on families, fans, it's crazy. It's getting a lot of blowback for anybody who's really thinking about what this looks like for student athletes.
Yeah, if you look at it, and football is different and basketball is different because, and I said this decades ago when people, the athletes need to be paid and compensated. And listen, the rules are different for basketball and football. Those dudes don't got to go to class. Let's get real. They have tutors. Their grades are given to them. The grades are given to them, right? So let's just discount that. There's no academic rigor for football and basketball players. But for the Jimmies and Joes, right? The average or the low revenue sport, non-revenue sports, the wrestling, the baseball, the soccer, the lacrosse, these guys got to go to class, right? And when you're talking about a baseball team right now, they're not going from Indiana to Purdue. We're talking about going from UCLA to Penn State to play a 3-game baseball series. Those guys got to get up. They got to get on a commercial flight. They got to go to Penn State and play for 3 or 4 days, get on a plane again, go back across the country, and get their ass to class the next day.
Which is crazy. And that's where a lot of these coaches are like, listen, I get it. People are chasing the money. They're chasing the dollar. But why is nobody thinking about the students? And that's where a lot of the blowback is. So you have the athlete who this is crazy implications for, again, especially non-football. And then you have travel stuff. You also have the fact that, regardless of what sport it is, you're adding, let's say, 4 schools to the Big Ten. You're going to start seeing less of your favorite duels. So your wrestling duel favorite, you might not see Penn State, Iowa. You might not see some of these matchups because, well, now let's say some of these programs do add wrestling. What is a conference tournament? What does a conference season look like? It's crazy.
Yeah. And there's obviously going to have to be beyond the conference realignment, beyond the 4 schools coming to the Big Ten and 3 schools coming to the Big 12, there's obviously going to have to be some sort of wrestling specific realignment, because now you lose Arizona State from the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 is left with Oregon State and Stanford and some affiliates. Your Cal Polys and things like that. They're going to have to consolidate. They're going to have to go to some other conference.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if they, would Wyoming want to not be in the Big 12? Would Little Rock not want to be in? Well, you'll still have Little Rock in the Pac-12. But something's going to have to happen there, right? Northern Colorado is in the Big 12. I mean, the Big 12 could now, the Big 12 now could say, let's just go to conference full members only, and have our conference tournament, and all affiliate members are going to have to figure out something to do.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I'm not too in the know on that part. How many schools are just wrestling alone affiliated with different conferences?
A ton.
It's a lot, right?
Ton. It's a lot. The SoCon is a mismatch, of teams from different conferences. The Big 12 is the one, right? Because the Big 12 was down to just a handful of teams at one time. Oklahoma State, Iowa State. There wasn't too many. I think at one time it was 5. I mean, they were down.
Mizzou's in there right now,
and then they took
right?
Mizzou is, but Mizzou is an SEC team, right? And Mizzou was in the MAC for a long time. So, really, the Big 12, they were down. They pretty much perpetuate itself by taking on affiliate schools, right? Because technically, I mean, Oklahoma and Missouri are SECs. And so, you have the Cal Baptists in there. You have the North Dakota State, the South Dakota State. They're not Big 12 schools. So they might have to figure something out. And that's going to be, I don't hear anybody talking about that. I don't hear anybody talking about what, there's people out there that are talking about what is Oregon State going to do? What is Stanford going to do as far as wrestling? But there's not many people talking about what the Big 12 could do and what the affiliate members of the Big 12 could do. They could peel away. which will affect both them. Well, it could be a new conference, and it could be it will affect the Big 12.
It's also rumored that Florida State and Clemson are in talks with the Big 10.
Mm-hmm.
Those for me might be two of the schools I would love to see add a program the most.
Oh, I love it. I'd love to see, man. I mean, it's tough to me. It's tough for me to say I don't care about any of them. Washington, the state of Washington doesn't have a Division I wrestling program. That's terrible. UCLA, USC would be great just to have one of them. Florida State does not have a Division I program. The state of Florida. Adding Florida State would be amazing. Clemson and its branding, I think, you know, they're sort of natural fits for ACC, but these are places that need programs, and the potential for them to add is just amazing. I'd love nothing more for that to happen, but these are business money decisions, and it's hard for me to believe. It's hard for me to believe that these ADs and these school presidents are going to make a business decision to make money. They're going to make a business decision to make money. And then in turn, they're going to make a decision to add a wrestling program that costs money. Right. So,
well, yeah, I don't know if it was Terrapelli. Somebody was talking about that. You know, it's like, why I saw you quote tweet them, like, to add something to your table that you do not have to, you don't get paid more for it. It's just a further responsibility to oversee.
Yeah. You're going to add responsibility and cost.
Right.
You know, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, it only makes sense in a moral perspective. And when I say that, I mean the original idea behind college athletics was to give your students extracurricular activities, to provide a place to participate in activities that your student body enjoyed, right? And you know, that's why I always bring up California, who has California has the most wrestlers in high school, but yet they don't have a state university that offers the sport. I mean, isn't your job as a state institution to provide opportunities for your constituents?
Right.
And they don't. So in a moral way, from a moral angle, it's the right thing to do to provide opportunities. But it's not mandated, and from a dollars and cents thing, why would they do it?
Who do you think, if there was out of all these schools moving conferences that don't have wrestling right now, who would you think is the most likely to potentially add wrestling? If one school added it, who would you be least surprised to hear added it?
Oregon. I think they have the pressure. I think there's pressure on them. I think there's still a smoldering of people in Eugene that are pissed off that they canceled the program. There's still people like me that bitch about Nike having a whole lot of money, making money on wrestling. They have all the resources in the world. There is no reason that Oregon can't. And so if there was one program that I think it would be Oregon.
Yeah. It'd be super cool. Pac-12 does themselves no favors, and I know this is a huge thing with football and everything else, but Pac-12 does no favors with consumption, like watching the sports. So it is, moving to the Big Ten. I understand why some of these schools are moving. And again, if you're kind of not paying too much attention, a lot of this has to do with television rights and making more money off streaming and, trying to win a football championship
It-
stuff.
An interesting thing too about Oregon is a lot of people don't remember this, but when Oregon dropped wrestling, they started a baseball program. And the reason behind that was because Oregon State was doing great in baseball. They went back-to-back national titles in baseball. And Oregon got jealous. So they cut wrestling and added baseball. And
then had like no success, right?
I think they might have been okay for like an instant, but then no. Then they had no success. And Boise State was another one. They started baseball and I think they cut it already because it's so cost prohibitive, right? It's very high cost where, a wrestling program isn't going to bring you in a lot of money, if at all, at most places, but it's not going to cost you a whole lot of money either. It's pretty cheap.
Yeah, Boise State cut baseball and swimming in 2020.
Yeah, and that's what 7 years after starting it, 6 years after starting it.
That's crazy.
The genius AD cut wrestling and added baseball, and then cut baseball within. I mean, they spent millions of dollars on a field.
There's two things I was intrigued to talk to you about in regards to the conference realignment, and it's coaching and recruiting, because that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people are talking about or really even care about in some regard. But the number of how that would change recruiting, it would obviously provide more opportunities, and coaching more opportunities. Be cool if you start thinking of like who could coach Oregon, who could coach Washington State. This is obviously also still early, but have you heard anything behind the scenes of people who are like really paying attention to try to like get ahead of all this?
As far as like
on the coaching side, like are there people? There's I don't know if I want to say some of their names. I feel like there's a lot of like number 2s or number 3s that got to be really eager to see if any of these schools add wrestling, because I'm sure they'd love to throw their hat in the ring to start a program. It's not easy though to start a program. Like I remember when Chenzo went with Cole to Stanford, how much work they had to do. And that was just cutting a program and then restarting it. To start one from scratch takes a lot of work. You have to really be a good fit, in my view, for that.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I haven't talked to anybody that says, hey, if USC starts a program, I'm definitely I'm definitely interested in the program. I haven't, but then again, I don't know how people on the inside. I don't think the people on the inside are optimistic.
Agreed.
I don't think that.
No, I agree.
I don't think they've got to that stage yet, because I don't believe that the people that people on the inside of wrestling think that there's going to be any programs that get started. I certainly think there's no shortage of candidates that would be great in some of these places. But yeah, that's where we're at.
The recruiting too, you kind of already alluded to it, but the recruiting opportunities in California, if one of these West Coast programs added wrestling, is bananas.
Yeah. I mean, especially down south, Southern Cal, SoCal, they produce a good amount of wrestlers. They don't produce it like the Fresno Valley, but they produce a good amount of wrestlers. I mean, there's a natural pipeline there for kids who want to stay home and go to USC or UCLA. I mean, just look at the kids alone that Ruben Valencia has produced.
There's a lot of good young girls over there too. I mean, that's
the girls, forget about it. They should have a Division I program for the girls for sure. And if there's, that's a great point actually. If I talk about servicing your constituents. I'm talking about giving opportunities for what your state is good at and what your state is interested in. The fact that there's not a Division I girls wrestling program in the state of California is just an abomination. It's a dereliction of duty from any university professionals and all the state legislature. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
And now seems like the best time. Like you're already seeing a huge rise in women's program. You're seeing a huge. I think this year was like Fargo. The biggest year-over-year gain was women's freestyle, girls wrestling. It's growing so much, and I think there's a unique opportunity to not only add wrestling, but adding both men's and women's wrestling would be sweet.
Well, it looked that way, but NIL, and now conference realignment, mega coast to coast conferences. Division I women's wrestling is dead.
Why? You've tweeted about that a couple of times. I don't know if we've talked about it. Tell me why.
Because cost. They're not going. These schools are not going to absorb cost in an era that just got ushered in, where they have to do everything they can for NIL. I mean, they're going to be, their number one focus is going to be football and basketball and getting their athletes the most money they can. Here's the thing too, that a lot of people don't know. For instance, California state legislature has a bill that their athletes must be paid. Their athletes must be paid. If that goes through, forget about it. Because you know who they're going to pay. They're going to play basketball and football. And I'm not up to date on the current numbers. Well, it hasn't changed in forever, but to be NCAA Division I, you have to have a minimum sports, you have to have minimum revenue, you have to have minimum this and that, you have to have minimum ticket sales to football games and stuff like that. The scary part is, the doomsday scenario is that the university presidents and university athletic directors would it surprise you if they changed those rules in some near future where you only had to have 3 sports? I mean, yeah,
it's crazy to I was trying to find one of your tweets, and I'm finding the most likely Oregon, because they have unlimited Nike money, and if Oregon doesn't have them, it's an interesting time. I think it's going to be. It's a monumental change if these schools do add wrestling. I think it becomes a very fun time to be a wrestling fan, but I'm hearing the same thing you are, which is no optimism from anybody. Like, oh, hey, so-and-so could, be adding a wrestling program. There's none of that. This is all about football and football alone.
There's,
but it is happening. For those people asking what's happening, it is.
I don't want to seem like a conspiracy theorist, but I think it'd be more likely in 50 years if college wrestling looks like women's college wrestling, where it's at Lindenwood and it's at East Stroudsburg, as opposed to.
Would we be looking at a Willie career change?
I was thinking about going into modeling.
Well, I saw you want to grow your hair out.
Yeah.
So you take beer caps off. All right, a couple other topics. Any final conference realignment thoughts?
Well, I talked about Big 12 using Big 12 teams, maybe keep them, Oklahoma, maybe keeping some of the traditional ones, Oklahoma, Missouri. I think the West should organize. I think the West should organize. I think the Big 12 should become smaller. I think the West should organize and maybe have a conference where it's Oregon State, Cal Poly, Northern Colorado, Wyoming, maybe the Dakotas, or something. I think we're going to need another conference, because Pac-12 is gone.
Pac-12 is gone. But again, Pac-12 needs, part of their problem is between the late night hours, the poor viewing. They need the East Coast audience, and at their current infrastructure, which is now basically non-existent, it's very hard to follow that closely.
Yeah, but I mean, they I don't know what Pac-12 is going to do. I mean, are they going to even retain the name? I mean, the Pac-12,
I think they're going to be dissolved. I think it'll be dissolved.
It's such a shame. Pac-12 is just such a prestigious conference for decades and decades, and you know what's the Rose Bowl is no more. The Rose Bowl Big Ten versus Pac-12 champ is no more. I mean, that's just sad from a traditionalist perspective. But I think the West needs to reorganize. Whether, who knows what Stanford does, but they still have enough schools with Wyoming and Utah Valley and Oregon State, Cal Poly, Cal Baptist, that they could have their own conference. And frankly, everybody's jazzed about the left coast schools going to the Big Ten, the potential for them to add programs. I mean, I don't think they're going to add programs, but even if they would, now you're talking about a conference tournament where it's like 18 schools or whatever. It would be 18 programs. I mean, I don't know if that's good for wrestling. I don't know if that's good for, I mean, if that would happen, I think they'll never do this, but their conference qualifiers maybe their conference tournament should be Big Ten West and Big Ten East, and have two 8-team tournaments. Yeah, it's gonna be there's pieces to put together, that's for sure. And who knows if they would ever do something. I think the Big Ten, the people in the Big Ten, the schools that are in the Big Ten, the Kales and the Tom Brands and the Minnesotas, Nebraskas, they enjoy being in the Big Ten, and they take pride in it. And so I don't think they would ever change this, but I think this maybe the smartest model for wrestling is to go to regionals, right? Take instead of conference tournament, do it geographically, because now there's just these mega tournaments, right? There's the Big 12 who has 1 million schools. There's a Big 10 who has 1 million schools, and then there's conferences that are 4 or 5 teams,
right?
And frankly, from a fan perspective, well, it's really great to see Alex Marinelli and Vincenzo Joseph 3 or 4 times a year, but at the same time, why? Maybe Alex Marinelli wins Big Ten West and Vincenzo wins the Big Ten East, and then we see it at NCAAs, and I don't know. There's for the Big Ten, and I said it a long time ago, how big that conference is, how grueling that schedule is. Not only the dual meet schedule, but then also the conference tournament. I would not be opposed. I would like a regional format where we don't see it till the end. And if I had a son that was good at wrestling, or if I was advising, I'm not saying, trust me, I don't turn kids away. I don't say don't go to the Big Ten, but I don't know if I'd send my kid to the Big Ten.
I mean, football already has Big Ten East and West. Like they have, an East Division, West Division. Winner of the East Division faces the West Division. That's their Big Ten championship.
Yeah, at what point does it become too grueling, too brutal, too taxing, you know.
It's interesting too, because when you have a lot of those matchups where you do have two of the top guys, and they're like, let's say Carr and O'Toole, where they're scheduled 4 potential times in the season, where you have, Big 12s, NCAAs, a dual meet, and Southern Scuffle, and we never see every one regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you blame them? I mean,
no, 100% no. And I told either Carr or someone recently, like, of course, we as fans, we'd love to see a great match. So we want to see it all the time. Doesn't mean it's the right thing to happen for anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of Carr, I texted you after that episode about when the heck Crystal Ball is going to come out for the next season. I feel like mid-August, you usually have it by now.
Yeah, I'm going to get cranking on it. I'm behind in a lot of stuff. I actually, Crystal Ball is coming out soon. Maybe some big boards. I think the first priority for me is going to be Crystal Ball, and then freshman big board, because I think that the senior big board is sort of fine-tuned. Junior, especially senior big board, sort of fine-tuned to the extent that movement would be minimal. It's almost static. But I think people are really interested in the fresh blood that's coming into high school. I mean, we saw Paul Kenny win a world title and Joey Bachman take world bronze. They're not in high school yet, right? Crazy. So people are going to be really interested in that.
That was going to be my next thing I was going to ask you about. I love, by the way, I try not to do it because I don't like confusing people, because I end up getting a ton of DMs, but I love that you still call it cadets. Whereas I've been using like U17, U20, just because I want to try to use the verbiage UWW uses so they can understand and follow it. But I love when it's like Cadet Worlds recap, cadet draws. I love seeing the proper term for it.
I don't know if I'm being the old man get off my lawn type guy, or just traditionalist, or just stubborn, just an iconoclast, like just being contradictory on purpose. But I hate 17U.
I hate 20.
It. Give me cadets, give me juniors.
Yep. You haven't done a cadets recap, right? You want to just kind of overview it real quick?
Yeah, I haven't done a cadet recap. So, but on video, I did it in writing, but man, I thought we really performed well. I know some people are down. Davino went 0-1. Aiden Sinclair went 1-1. Samson Stillwell went 0-1, and Christian Castillo went 0-2. And so a lot of people are probably like, wow, last year we brought home 9 medals. This year we had a lot of one and dones. That's really surprising. Well, it's not surprising for 2 reasons. When I did the draws article for the cadets, I saw this coming. I mean, I even tweeted, we got our work cut out for us, because our opening draws were terrible. It was really weird how it shook out, because frankly, our best guys got the worst draws. So that was really interesting. And another thing that was interesting was that our best guys with the worst draws were all on day 2. So we had this day 1 flight, which balled out with 4 making the semis. And then we had this next group, which is probably bigger stars, but tougher roads. And so day 1, we balled out 4 out of 5 in the semis. Day 2, down goes Davino, down goes Sinclair, early, and so it sort of took some air out of the balloon from, I think, maybe the general public, but you had to know it was possible because the competition early was so hard.
Now, you mentioned in your articles, and It's tough because so when I'm covering these events, a lot of times I cover USA as in Team USA. But that's kind of shifting because we have more and more athletes competing for other countries. Roman had back-to-back techs in Mexico. I'm not going to, cover the Olympics, the World Championships, and not talk about Roman Bravo Young. And that's happening at all age levels now, where you had Bachman wrestling for Puerto Rico against, he's a PA kid, American, wrestling for Puerto Rico against an American in the first round. What did you think? Because you're very pro. You want to see, if there's 20 countries at Worlds, you want to see 20 Americans wrestling for 20 different countries. What did you think when there was a first round matchup?
Terrible. There was actually two of them that was American versus American. Freddie Bachman against Ignacio Villaseñor was the big one, because I thought that, well, Freddie's a little young, but Ignacio was a medal threat, right? And I was like, man, he might get tripped up by Freddie. So that was the big one. But also Ladarian Lockett wrestled Yandro Soto. Not Yandro Soto. He wrestled Victor Soto from Florida. But that was pretty much like, you knew Ladarian was going to win that one. But, I didn't like that they hit the first round. But isn't it why? I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, how I feel about it is do what you want to do, man. Do what you want to do. There was a time, and maybe this was my USA insecurity, like, because we came off a time where we didn't get a lot of medals at Senior Worlds. There was a time where we were bringing one or two home.
Burroughs was medaling all by himself.
Yeah. I mean, it was 1 year with Burroughs and Herbert, 1 year Burroughs alone, 1 year like Burroughs and Coleman. I guess that Olympics was pretty good because we had three. We had Burroughs, Varner, but that was when it was 10. So, we had 3 out of 10. But anyway, I think there was a time where I was anti-wrestle for another country because we need the medals. We need the medals. We need our guys here medaling for the United States. I think our success as seniors has dampened that, has softened my stance on that, because I'm like, go ahead, go wrestle for another country. US is just we'll be fine. We'll have medalists, right? So I think my stance on that has just go do what you want to do. You do you, right? If that's what's in your heart, go do it. So I don't know. I don't blame the Bachmans. I don't blame anybody that transfers, but
well, you're going to see it more and more as you see it on the senior level.
Wow, these kids think at the high school they already transferred.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think as it happens more and more in the senior level, they're just going to start earlier. Why wouldn't they just establish that process and establish all that early? But yeah, so we did have 3 world champs, which was pretty cool. Finished in unofficial third, second according to the points, third if you add up the athletes that were not allowed to compete for their country, Russia.
Another good year. I think generally speaking, Americans get spoiled. I think, when we go into a tournament, be it cadets or juniors or U23s or seniors, every year Americans are a little overzealous. I said, I think before Cadet Worlds, I said, I'm pretty sure we'll be top 3. Pretty sure we'll be top 3. There's a chance we're not. I mean, a chance we're, we could be 4th. And I think people looked sideways at me like, what are you talking about? Like, this team's amazing. Davino and Sinclair and Darren Lockett, Marcus Blaze. Like, we're going to kill it. We're going to, we could take first. And we can take first. But the world is good, guys. The world is good. And we hit some tough guys. And it's possible that what happened. but you know, every year before Worlds, how many medals are we going to get? Oh, we're going to get 9 medals. I see U.S. bringing home 9 medals, dude. It ain't happening.
Well,
the world is good.
I was going to ask you with cadets over next week end of next week kicks off the juniors, and our team is stacked.
And everybody and every American is going to say, we're going to bring home 7 medals, dude. It ain't happening. It's not happening. That's
okay.
it.
Okay, wait. Okay, time out. Does Luke medal at 57?
I don't know.
Well, lean towards one way.
It's a bubble. I'll give you Luke. Luke medals at Worlds every year.
Okay, so we're 1 for 1. Buzakis at 61. Which way do you lean?
Buzakis, I think, does.
Okay, so we're 2 for 2. Jesse Mendez.
No, he's too small.
Okay. Meyer Shapiro. Don't tell me he's not medaling.
Yeah, give me Meyer.
So already we're 3 for 4. Messenbrink.
Yeah, Messenbrink medals.
Okay, so we're at what, okay, 4? All right, Singleton.
No.
Okay. Bennett Berge.
No. Bennett Berge was silver last year, yes. He medals.
So that's 5. Dara.
No.
Okay. McDaniel.
No.
Okay. And Christian Carroll. I'd lean towards he does. I'd lean towards.
Yeah, okay. So 6.
That's still a great squad. Like, and I understand what the fans do, where it's like, 7, 8, 9 medals.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a strong squad. That kicks off the 14th.
That is amazing. It's an amazing squad. And I said 6, and I picked 6 individuals. I bet you only 5 do. I bet you there's a surprise in there because that's what happens.
Yeah. The women's team too is stacked.
Yeah.
Kennedy Blades at 76, Amit Elor at 72. I mean,
that's just ridiculous.
Audrey at 50. I mean, yeah, they're Katie Goldman's 53. That squad's ridiculous too. So yeah, overall, you think it was a good performance? It was right in line where you thought the cadets were going to be.
It was right in line. It was right in line with what I thought. I mean, if Tavino medals, if Sinclair medals, and that's a long shot because they went 0-1 and 1-1. But if they medal, it's basically perfect, right? If they don't, it's right in line with what I expected. You can't, like, that's what I guess I'm getting at is Americans are like, they assume a perfect scenario, and it's just, it never works out that it rarely works out that way. Last year cadets it did. 20, I don't know, what is it, 2015, 2017 in Paris, it worked out perfectly, right? It worked out perfectly. July, Snyder beats Sedgelaya, right? I mean, that's a tournament going perfectly, but you can't assume perfection.
Yeah, James Green only has one more tournament, and then he's out. Have you heard anything about who's going to replace him?
Yes, done.
When's that being announced?
I don't know, but I don't know. And I've spoken to the guy that got the job, and he wants to be very respectful of everything. So yeah. I think US wants to be respectful. I think, oh my God, I must have said the name.
Well, we're not live, so we could have edited it out, but
yeah, that's right. The person that got the job wants to be respectful of both the job he's leaving and of James Green.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and the athletes, right? And the athletes, like, James gets the job done through the rest of the summer, and then they announce. I think they might wait until like maybe like juniors are done or U23s are done. I think, but I don't know.
Well, James, I think only goes to U20s. I don't think he does U23s. So it makes sense.
Okay. So it makes sense if they maybe did it after Poland.
Yeah. You're not going to Poland, right? I keep hearing you complain about passport issues.
Yeah, no, I stopped worrying about the passport thing. I'll get it in time to go to France next year, or France for the Olympics, and that's it. I'm not gonna too much headaches, man. Move in, passports, this and that, setting up your freaking cable. I don't like tedium. I don't like doing little.
What are you doing for a studio out there? You had that beautiful setup back in PA. What are you doing out there? You're gonna do you're gonna get a whole setup going?
I'm gonna be back there. I'm gonna be back there a bunch, and I kept. Yeah, I'm gonna get a whole new setup out here. I got it. I actually have it pretty close to what I want. Might have to get some lighting, some stuff. There's some details, but the studio at home is staying at home, and I'm going to be back there a lot during the winter, during the college season for events and stuff. And it's my plan to leave the studio at home the way it is and pop in there, and I don't have to lug equipment around coast to coast, and I can just hit power on and do a show from Pennsylvania.
I love it. All right, well, that's conference realignments. That's cadets recap. Crystal ball you're working on. James Green replacement's going to be announced shortly.
Excited. Yep.
Trying to think. You got anything else? Am I missing anything that's kind of been happening recently?
What's been your smoker situation recently? Have you done anything good? Anything you're proud of on the Traeger?
Yeah, my big thing lately is tenderloin roast. They're so good.
Yeah.
You reverse sear it, so you get a nice big tenderloin like this. Smoke it at 225. Then I got a gas grill right next to it, and crank that up to 600 and sear it minute and a half aside. But I think I'm going to be getting a new Traeger.
Yeah.
Because, and I am open to other smokers if people convince them, likely a Traeger. My son has like a crazy allergy to dairy. So anytime I put he's got allergies to dairy, soy, all that. So anytime I put something on the Traeger and then he eats it, he gets a reaction. So I haven't been able to cook him anything. So I gave a buddy of mine the Traeger that was in the garage, a 780. And now I might move the Iron 885 into the garage for the winter smoker when it's raining, all that, and get a new one for out back. Some of these new ones, they're so expensive, like $3 or $4 grand.
Yeah,
it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, we do pulled pork all the time for parties. We do tenderloin roast if like my mother and her husband are in town. So the Traeger. I'll tell
you what I'd like to do, but obviously can't do it now because moving and stuff. I'm in between some things, but the steelhead trout up here, brother, ain't nothing like it. Up here, Pacific Northwest, baby.
What's that? You didn't really fly. You drove out there, right? So you haven't. What's that flight situation like?
The flight situation? It's fine. Flight situation's fine. Boom, Spokane to anywhere.
Yeah, but then layover somewhere to get home, right? To PA.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I didn't look at flights yet from. Well, I guess
you're a maniac for making that drive from PA out there. A maniac.
Dude, it's so beautiful. I cannot express to you how beautiful Montana is. It's
I believe it. I can't drive more than 3 hours. I'll be asleep.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate driving. I used to love it. When I was a kid, I loved it. I'll drive 20 hours nonstop. But now I'm like, I could be doing so many other things instead of staring at the car in front of me.
Yeah, and like for me, if I was in Spokane, I'd be going down to Oregon, hit the Willamette Valley, drink some amazing Pinot. Even that's probably like 7 hours. Oh, the other thing that's great on a Traeger that's underrated is smoking a burger. So you
Yeah.
make a nice thick half-pound Wagyu burger, Angus beef burger, smoke it at 225 until it hits like 145, 150, and that thing is
Yeah.
just so dang good.
Yeah, I
So
bet.
good. You can quickly sear it at the end if you want to, but yeah.
I'm doing the trout, the steelhead, and the salmon out here. Not smoked, of course, but in the restaurants. It's so good, so different.
Oh, and it's got to be great to walk in and hear that as a special, knowing how fresh it is.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
But that's all I got, buddy. I guess next is we kind of gear up for juniors, right?
yeah. We'll probably do a show together after juniors. I've been trying to have on some of the guys. I know people like when I have these athletes on, tell their stories. So had Rocky Elam on last week, caught up with Bo Bartlett. Before that, I had David Carr on. So it's easier to coordinate with these guys during the off season. Get them on. They're having fun. They're relaxed. So I'll probably do some more stories. And then, we go right from then World Championships end of September. We're only a month and a half out from that. And then the college season's already here again.
I know, right? I know. I can't wait. I mean, to tie it back up from the main topic, I can't wait to see what becomes of conference realignment, wrestling specific, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will teams trade conferences? Will a new conference tournament or conference or NCAA qualifier, will that be coming? I'm sure they are, but who knows when we get those tidbits.
Any gambling story updates?
No. We've been hearing that Iowa has significant people facing significant penalties, but we've been hearing that for months. So that's all we know.
The Pinero thing still makes me laugh. Pinero going hard AF. What an all-time tweet.
Dude, he did though. He was not playing around.
Well, but what people also don't understand about when you see amounts like that is it's like if you bet $10 and let's say you're live betting and you just keep winning, losing, you're not making those big deposits. You
didn't bet $5,000.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a hilarious tweet. An all-time tweet. Went hard AF. Oh, man.
See what happens with him.
All right, Willie. Well, that's all I got. I can't wait to see what happens next with this conference stuff. I'm glad we talked about it. Now I can just tell people to go listen to this show.
Let's hit me and you maybe a show after Crystal Ball and maybe a show.
Yeah, we got to review Crystal Ball. I've been waiting because I'm already ready to argue with you. And you haven't even done them yet.
Let's go.
All right, we'll be back
Bye,
soon.
buddy.
See ya.
And the beat goes on.